So this question is about Allah's reference to Himself in the Quran.
Yes.
And the question is as follows. Sometimes in the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks as a direct reality.
Yes.
Sometimes as if the Quran is referring to a third person for lack of better words. Or sometimes Allah speaks of Himself using words that can refer to plural in the literal sense. The verses below from Surah Taha are examples of each of these. In verse 4, Allah uses Him to refer to Himself. And in verse 14, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala uses I, me. In verse 38, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala uses we.
Yes.
For example, and this is recurring. Of course, I understand that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is only one reality, but how can we understand all these different ways of Allah referring to Himself? Sometimes as a direct speaker using I, other times as a third subject using Him, and other times as we, which can mean plural in the literal sense.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. This is actually a common practice in language. An author may sometimes in his book, for example, if he writes a story about himself, sometimes, he talks about himself as a third person and sometimes as the first person. So sometimes, for example, it says, he, sometimes me, and sometimes also can say we if it refers to a collectivity, a group. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because He is working with His agents and there is a hierarchy of agents and instruments, sometimes He says we, because we know He does things normally through causes and cause and effects, channels. Alhamdulillah. So, shukran, yaghfirullah. So he may say that we did this. Inna anzalnahu fi laylatil qadr. Because there are, for example, angels or Jibreel who was involved. Or because of his great position also he may say we. So if, for example, a king sometimes says we did this, referring to his government and ministers. Sometimes he says we give you this title because of his position, his high position. So for tashrif it can be. Or it can be because it refers to a group. And the third person, as I said, it's common, and also it's again can be sometimes because he is so great that we refer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as third person, means someone who is so great that it's not, someone who is between us in the sense that to be normal and ordinary. But what is important is whenever it comes to something related to worshipping and praying, we never address Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in a plural form. Even Allah doesn't say it in plural form. For example, Allah doesn't say u'buduna or liya'buduna. No, liya'budun. Also we say iyyaka na'bud. We don't say iyyakum na'bud. Although in Arabic or any other language, as a matter of politeness, you may use plural form. But when it comes to ibadah, to dua, to istighfar, we don't say, for example, astaghfirukumul to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We don't say astaghfirukum, for example. Astaghfiruka. Or astaghfiruhu. We don't use plural. So, the Quran is very accurate and very precise. So, when it comes to ibadah and dua and istighfar, which is only for Allah, it's always singular. But when it comes to explaining the actions of Allah or things that Allah has done, then it's possible to use plural.
next question is from Islamic belief system, and it is about the following. The title is, are most people choosing the good or bad? We have learned that only a minority of people would be those who would see and know the truth fully and then choose to be rebellious against it. We also have an idea that most people, had the truth been presented to them, would believe. Whether this idea is correct or false, we may have this idea. However, the Quran, and the question is about this idea, whether this is true. So we have an idea that most people, only very few people, will know the truth and be rebellious against it, know the truth fully and be rebellious against it. And this is a question from me, that it seems that, this being said, that most other people, if the truth was presented to them, they would believe. So I wanted to ask about this. So however, and the reason why I'm asking is this, that in the Quran repeatedly gives examples of entire nations that were presented with clear proofs from their prophets, alayhi salam, but did not believe, and only a small portion of them believed. Now the question here is, didn't the prophets, alayhi salam, make the truth clear to them? Also, so we're talking about Qawm Ad and Qawm Thamud and Al-Fir'aun and others that the Quran repeatedly makes mention of. Also, we have numerous verses that say that most people do not reflect, do not believe, are not grateful. Hence, on what basis do we say that most people, if the truth is presented to them, will believe, if we say this? Isn't it the opposite? Or are we saying something completely different? That most people are not against the truth, nor are they devoted to it, and that if it is presented to them clearly, without any cost to believing, then they would believe, and hence they don't deserve eternal punishment. On the positive side, are we saying that while most people will always not be devoted to the truth, nor will they be against it, but the quality of the devotees to the truth over time is evolving over time? So there's two separate questions. So the first one, we can divide this in two parts. The first question is about, how is it really that most people, if the truth is presented to them, they would follow it? And if so, how do we understand the Quranic references to peoples who have been presented with the truth but did not believe, and only a small portion believed and were saved?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. When we talk about humanity as, general, it seems that most of people are not people who are against the truth. When you talk about small groups, small nations, it's possible that you find that majority might be, because of some historical reasons, biased against the truth, or maybe they have some problems that doesn't let them to appreciate the truth. But when you are talking about humanity in general, I don't think the majority are very vicious people or wicked people or are biased against the truth and reject the truth. At the same time, it's not that the majority are very devoted and committed to the truth and are ready to go for sacrifice and, do everything for the sake of truth. The majority seem to be people who love the truth, who appreciate the truth, and if there is no great cost to them, they would go for it. If there is a good presentation of truth, especially with examples, it's not just theory. If you can present the truth with examples, I think hearts of people, majority of people, would welcome and be appreciative. For example, if someone talks about virtues and gives examples, majority of people would love it and would want to have some share. But if it costs them their lives, if it costs them their job, their money, their, I don't know, position, it might not be the case that the majority would do that. But as long as it's a matter of them appreciating and not wishing you bad and not trying to harm you, I think majority would be open to that. So it is the job of the people who are on the side of the truth to not look at people as their enemies or opponents of the truth, and not to lose any opportunity to reach out with hope, with openness, with respect, with acknowledgement of fitrah of people. And also they should try not to expect too much, not to make the cost of working for the cause of truth too high, so that many people cannot afford. Don't ask people for radical changes at once. Don't bring too much of expectations when you work with people. Little by little, step by step, and by focusing on what has priority, inshallah, then you would see that, like Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, a nation can change. How Rasulullah changed a nation? By these things that I mentioned. By good presentation, but plus exemplifying what he said in his behavior and behavior of his companions, but not expecting too much at once. There was a time that he just used to say, قُولُوا لَا إِلَهَ إِلَّا اللَّهُ تُفْلِحُوا. Many of religious rulings came in Medina, even gradually. In Mecca, there were not that much Shari'i requirements. There were few basic requirements to become Muslim, like not worshipping idols, not to kill, not to commit fornication, things like this, not to commit theft. And these are things that people appreciate. So a person who works for the cause of truth should be first clarifying these issues for himself. If he expects too much from people, or he has no hope in people, or he has no priority in his tasks, then he may fail. And may fail not only by not reaching what he wants, he may fail by causing more harm, by making the next attempt for bringing truth to the forefront more difficult.
Thank you so much. So the follow-up here to this question was the second part, in which there's an attempt to try to look at another positive angle,
yes,
other than the ones that you have mentioned, which is that are we saying that because, and this is in relation to the end of time and the coming of Imam Mahdi, so on the positive side, are we saying that while most people will not always be devoted to the truth, nor will they be against it, but the quality of the devotees to the truth, those who are very devoted, over time their quality is evolving. The quality of that minority of devoted people to the truth is becoming greater over time.
Yes.
And yes.
Yes. So if you want to summarize the situation of Akhir al-Zaman, we make 3 points. This is my conclusion of the situation in Akhir Zaman. First, both parties of truth and batil, falsehood, would reach their peak. In Akhir Zaman, you have the best of people and the worst of people. Secondly, quantity-wise, the situation would be in the favor of the people of batil. and I mean by quantity, their numbers, but also their money, their instruments, weapons. They would have upper hand. But quality-wise, the people of Haqq would be stronger. So you would have ghalaba of Haqq over Batil, not in quantity, in quality. So Haqq would overcome and overwhelm Batil in quality. Because you would have the best of people, the most understanding, the most intelligent, the most committed, the most merciful, the most loving and caring people among mu'mineen of Akhir al-Zaman. The people that reflect the beauties of Islam more than majority of people who lived even in the time of the Prophet. Yes, there can be exceptions. There can be among the companions of the Prophet people like Salman, for example, who are very high. But as average, mu'mineen of Akhir al-Zaman are better than mu'mineen of any other time. As we frequently mention this hadith of Imam Zain al-Abidin to Abu Khalid al-Kabuli, in which he said that those who believe in the ghaibah of Imam Zaman and wait for him, they are afdalu ahli kulli zaman. They are the best people of all ages. As average, in general, there can be exceptions. You can find, for example, someone like Salman better than most or all of people of Akhir al-Zaman, for example, apart from Imam himself. We don't know. Maybe even there are people who will be better than Salman. But in any case, we don't want to say everyone is better than Salman, but we want to say as average, in general, if you consider all mu'mineen of Akhir al-Zaman, who, despite all the challenges, they are mu'min, they are strong, and they have so much of ma'rifah and understanding that for them ghaibah and mushahada are the same, as Imam says, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala آتاهم من العقول والأفهام والمعرفة ما صارت به الغيبة عندهم بمنزلة المشاهدة. So inshallah, quality-wise, everything would be in the favor of Haqq, though quantity-wise might not be this case. And both would reach their peak.
Alright, so that covers this question. Thank you so much. And we have a general question in the time that's left. And the question is as follows. At what point does a person become fit and qualified to preach about Islam and spirituality to others? And what are the etiquettes of approaching this matter?
Yes, very good question and difficult question. I think in addition to some training that one should have and also experience that one should have, you need to also have some recognition. So I think someone always higher in rank should give you the green light to start this. Because I am not aware of the sophisticated nature of this, I think my knowledge is enough or my experience is enough. And then I would put myself into difficulties and I create difficulties for people. One of the beautiful things that we have had in our tradition, which is unfortunately nowadays a little bit fading, is ijaza, the concept of ijaza. Getting permission from your master, from your teacher, in narrating hadith, for example, or ijazatul ijtihad. So I think when it comes to teaching and preaching also, there should be something similar, that a senior alim would tell you that you have reached the point that you can do this. I remember, when I was in the at the end of the first year of my study in Hosea, because I had some part-time studies in Tehran. I went to Qom and I did second year. So my studies in Iran was enough to start on the second year. So when I finished the second year, our principal of Madrasa of Hosea very much was encouraging us to go to Tabligh. And I went to him and said, I have only studied this much. And he said, Estid, you should go. You can do Tabligh, but go to a school, primary school, and you can do Tabligh for children. So he was encouraging us to do Tabligh, and he was saying that if you don't start from beginning, if you delay it and say, okay, after 10 years, 15 years of studying Hosea, I start doing Tabligh, then you may actually find it more difficult to start at all, because your expectations from yourself goes higher. People would expect more, and also you have no experience, and it becomes a psychological barrier that all these years you have not done any Tabligh and now you want to start. So my advice is not to delay too much, but also not just jump into it. So if there are opportunities, ask someone who knows you and has knowledge and experience, that do you think I fit into this job? I can do justice to this or not? So don't keep distance always from such things. These are great responsibilities and also opportunities for you to improve your relation with Allah by teaching people, by helping people. But at the same time, don't jump, and try to be careful what you can do, not more than that. As Amirul Mu'minin salam says, رحم الله امرأ عرف قدره ولم يتعدى طوره. May Allah have mercy upon the one who knows his limits and would not go beyond that. So this is a brief explanation of what I think would be a balanced position.
Thank you very much, Sheikhna. This covers it for the questions today.